You ever think your marriage is rock solid? Like, the kind people look at and go, now that's the dream? That was me and my wife, Rachel. We had the looks, the lifestyle, the careers. We worked at the same financial firm, showed up to the same corporate parties dressed to impress, always polished and perfectly in sync. People envied us. They thought we had it all figured out. But lately, something had shifted. At first, I brushed it off. She started working late more than usual, said she had back-to-back meetings, client dinners, deadlines. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her. But then little things started stacking up. She stopped talking to me at night, sat at dinner like her body was there, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. Her phone used to be tossed on the kitchen counter while we made dinner together. Now it was glued to her hand or buried deep in her purse, always face down. I'm not the suspicious type. I believe in logic. In patterns. I'm an analyst, that's what I do. Look at facts, not feelings. But even facts were starting to whisper something was wrong. One night, we were sitting across from each other in our sleek kitchen. Marble counters, stainless steel everything, like something out of a design magazine. She was scrolling through her phone, eyes lit with a smile so faint I almost missed it. But I saw it. That half-smile, the kind you give someone who texts you something personal. The second she noticed me watching, she flipped the phone over. "Work?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She barely looked up. "Ma'am, campaign stuff." Rachel worked in public relations, so technically, that tracked. Late nights, image management, playing nice with big-name clients. She was damn good at what she did, almost too good. She could lie without blinking. Tonight, though, something in my gut told me the truth was hiding under that casual shrug. "You've been really busy lately," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Feels like I hardly see you." She let out this sigh, like the conversation itself was exhausting. "I told you, it's hectic right now. Carl's pushing through some major deals. I've got to stay ahead of it." Carl Peterson. Our firm's CEO. Charismatic, powerful, the type of guy who walks into a room and everyone suddenly wants to impress him. He had this magnetic, cutthroat charm. Married, of course, but that never stopped guys like him. Not really. I'd never seen him and Rachel interact in a way that raised alarms before. But tonight, when she said his name, something about it made me feel cold. "He seems to be keeping you pretty busy," I said, watching her face. Rachel rolled her eyes, grabbed her plate, and headed to the sink. "I don't have time for this, Jake. This." That's what she called it. My concern, our marriage, our entire life together. Just this. Like I was being dramatic for even bringing it up. I didn't argue. But inside, something shifted. A quiet, heavy warning dropped into my chest. Something was wrong, and it wasn't just in my head. That night, she went to bed early. Said she was tired. I sat in the office alone, staring at my computer screen, pretending to go over spreadsheets. In reality, I was digging. Emails, reports, calendar logs, on the surface, everything checked out. But I knew better. People like Carl and Rachel, they don't mess up on paper. Their lies hide in the margins, in the moments when no one's supposed to be watching. And I was about to start watching, closely. A week later, the gut feeling I'd been pushing aside came to life right in front of me. I had a meeting downtown that wrapped up earlier than expected, so I figured I'd surprise Rachel at the office. Maybe grab a late lunch, clear the air. But as I stepped out of the building and into the crisp afternoon air, adjusting my tie, I froze. There she was. Rachel, standing near the front entrance of our firm, laughing. Not the fake, polite laugh she used at networking events. This was real. Easy. Familiar. And standing next to her was none other than Carl Peterson. His hand was on the small of her back. Light, almost nothing. But it was there. And the worst part, she didn't flinch. She didn't step away. In fact, she leaned in, tossing her hair like she always did when she was comfortable. Happy. Carl opened the door of a sleek black Mercedes and Rachel slipped into the passenger seat like it was the most natural thing in the world. He closed it behind her, then walked around and slid into the driver's side. A second later, the car merged into traffic and disappeared. I just stood there, staring down the street, like I was trying to process what the hell I'd just seen. I could have called her, asked where she was headed. But why bother? I already knew. She was lying. Again. And she was damn good at it. That was the moment everything shifted for me. Rachel thought I was clueless. Thought she could slip into someone else's car, into someone else's life, and I'd never know. But that was her first mistake. And it was going to be her last. See, I've always been a patient man. My job taught me that. I work in analytics. Nothing gets solved by rushing. You have to sit back, observe, connect the dots. That same principle. It works just as well in life as it does in business. Rachel thought she was being careful. She deleted her messages, kept her phone locked tight, told a flawless story. But I've made a living off noticing patterns, and hers were starting to scream louder than she realized. I knew confronting her straight up would get me nowhere. She'd deflect, flip the script, make me the problem. Accuse me of being jealous or controlling. I wasn't giving her that opening. No. I was going to play it smart. The first step. I needed evidence. Solid, undeniable proof. I started where I knew I'd find it, Carl's office. The man was a creature of habit. He liked routine. Control. His office was this glass-walled corner fortress, all shine and power, overlooking the city skyline. That was his throne. And Rachel, she'd been spending a lot of time in there lately. So I checked the firm's access logs. We all had security key cards. I knew how to pull the records, perks of working in systems. And sure enough, there it was. Rachel's keycard had been used to access Carl's office after hours. Not once. Not twice. 3 separate times over the past 2 weeks. Meetings, she would have said. Late work. Crisis mode. Sure. I clenched my jaw and set my plan in motion. There's a type of tech I knew about from a private case I once worked on, miniature spy cams, barely the size of a shirt button. They can be stitched into clothing, hidden in a vent, even placed behind a picture frame. The resolution's crisp. No one would ever know. The next day, I scheduled a one-on-one with Carl. A standard financial review, something we did once a quarter. Right before I left his office, I pulled the classic move. "Damn," I said, patting my pockets. "I think I left my blazer in here. Mind if I grab it?" He didn't even look up from his screen. "Go ahead." My blazer had been hung neatly on the back of the chair earlier. Inside, a pinhole camera embedded right into the inner lining. Perfect. That night, I waited until Rachel went to bed, then locked myself in my office. I booted up the footage, hands trembling just slightly as I clicked play. For a while, it was nothing. Just an empty room, the distant hum of air vents, the lights of the city glowing in the background. And then, the door opened. Rachel walked in. She wasn't carrying a laptop or any files. She wasn't dressed for a late-night strategy session. She wore a tight black dress, heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor. She moved to the desk and placed her hand on it, casual, like she'd done it 100 times before. A few seconds later, Carl walked in and closed the door behind him. I felt my pulse slow. He leaned against the desk, loosened his tie, never taking his eyes off her. Rachel smiled. Not the kind she gave me lately. This was different, confident, almost smug. She walked closer to him, way too close for comfort. "You're playing with fire," Carl murmured. She tilted her head and smiled again. "You like fire." And then, clear as day, she said it. "Jake doesn't have a clue. He's buried in spreadsheets. He believes every word I say." That was it. I shut the laptop. I didn't need to see any more. The room felt cold. My hands were shaking, but not from shock. From anger. From betrayal. She'd made a joke out of me. Lied to my face. Let that man touch her like I didn't even exist. They both thought they were untouchable. They had no idea who they were dealing with. After watching that footage, after hearing her say my name like I was nothing more than a clueless idiot, something in me changed. I wasn't just hurt. I was focused. Carl thought he was king of the castle. Rachel thought she had me wrapped around her perfectly manicured finger. What they didn't realize was that I had something neither of them did: patience. And I was about to use it like a weapon. I didn't storm into the bedroom. I didn't scream or throw accusations. That would have been a waste. She'd just cry, twist things around, make me look like the paranoid husband. I've seen that playbook. It always ends the same, with the truth buried under layers of manipulation. No. I was going to do what I do best: gather information, connect dots, and execute the perfect plan. And it started with the money. I've always had a feeling that Carl wasn't just cheating on his wife. He was cheating the company, too. Numbers never quite lined up. Reports were polished, sure, but there were inconsistencies. Tiny red flags only someone who really understood the financial landscape would catch. And now, I had a reason to dig deeper. I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years: Tyler Green. We went to college together. Tyler's a forensic accountant, the kind of guy who can sniff out hidden money trails like a bloodhound. We once worked a fraud case together years ago, exposing a multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme. I knew he'd be down for this. "I need everything," I told him. "Is this legal?" he asked, half joking. "Not necessarily," I replied. He just laughed. Now this is the Jake I remember. While Tyler went to work behind the scenes, I stayed close to Rachel. Acted normal. Fine. Curious. The perfect husband who suspected nothing. And then, a few days later, I got my first gift. Tyler sent over a preliminary report. Not only had Carl been siphoning funds out of the company, but Rachel had helped him cover it up. They'd been shifting money, altering performance reports, funneling assets into shell companies, offshore accounts tied to aliases. The worst part? There were emails between them. Not explicit enough to hold up in court, but clear enough if you knew what you were looking at. Carefully worded phrases about adjusting perception and realigning projections. It was corporate code for cooking the books. Suddenly, this wasn't just about betrayal, it was about justice. I put together a file. Every document Tyler gave me. Every suspicious transaction. A financial bomb waiting to explode. Then I encrypted it, made sure nothing could be traced back to me, and sent it to a journalist I trusted, someone known for blowing the whistle on corporate corruption. The subject line was simple: "You'll want to see this." 2 days later, the headlines hit like a thunderclap. Peterson Capital under investigation for financial misconduct. Internal review. Investor panic. SEC involvement. It all started to snowball within hours. The company issued a vague statement about clarifying recent inaccuracies. But it was too late. The seed had been planted, and it was growing fast. That evening, Rachel came home looking pale, shaken. She walked into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of wine with trembling fingers. I sat at the island, calm as could be, sipping coffee. "Long day?" I asked, acting casual. "You could say that," she muttered. She didn't mention the news. Not directly. Just stared into her glass like she was hoping it would swallow her whole. After a long silence, she said, "You heard about the investigation, I'm guessing?" I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah." "Sounds serious." She studied me for a second, trying to read my face, trying to see if I knew something. But I'd spent my life presenting data to billionaires and stone-faced board members. I could hide anything behind a smile. "I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding," she said, forcing a little laugh. "Carl can handle it." "Can he?" I said, tilting my head. "Seems like there's more to it than that." Just for a second, I saw it, the flicker of fear. She tried to bury it, but I caught it. And that's when I knew she was starting to feel the heat. "Good." I stood up, stretched like the conversation meant nothing, and kissed her forehead on my way out of the room. "Hope it all works out," I said, and left her there in the kitchen, standing completely still. Step by step, the walls were starting to close in. And neither of them knew I was the one building them. After the story broke, things started to shift around the office, and fast. You could feel the tension the second you walked through the doors. Whispers in the halls, nervous glances, half-finished conversations that stopped the moment I got close. Carl Peterson, once the picture of control, was unraveling right in front of everyone. His shoulders, usually squared and proud, now slumped with the weight of uncertainty. The confident swagger was gone. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. And Rachel, she was barely keeping it together. I watched her from across our dinner table a few nights later. She was picking at her food, barely eating, her phone lighting up every few seconds with new messages. "They're saying it's just a misunderstanding," she muttered, not even looking up from her plate. I kept my voice steady. "Who's saying that?" There was a pause, too long. "Carl. The board. It's under control." I just nodded slowly. "Hope they're right. If it's not, people are gonna start jumping ship." There it was again, that flicker of fear. She tried to blink it away, act normal, but I saw it. I saw all of it. She was scared. And she should have been. Because this was far from over. While she scrambled to keep her lies intact, I started preparing the next phase. I knew Carl was desperate. Desperate men make stupid choices. You don't need to attack them. You just wait and let them implode. So I made another move. There was a man named James Holloway, one of our firm's biggest investors. Ruthless, sharp, and allergic to risk. I arranged to, accidentally, meet him for drinks at a private club uptown, the kind of place where the wine costs more than a car payment. As we talked over bourbon, I dropped the hint. "You might want to take a closer look at the books," I said, swirling the glass like it was just casual conversation. "I've got a feeling Peterson's playing a dangerous game." James didn't ask many questions. He just nodded, his expression hard to read. But I knew the seed had been planted. 2 days later, James pulled $50 million in investments out of the firm. The stock price tanked overnight. And just like that, the whispers turned into roars. Peterson Capital in freefall. Major investors pull out amidst scandal. Will CEO Carl Peterson survive the storm? The pressure was hitting Carl hard. I saw him pacing through the office corridors like a man on the edge. The board was asking questions. Auditors were digging deeper. And the press. They were circling like sharks. And Rachel, she was slipping. She'd started spending hours in front of her laptop at night, typing furiously 1 second, then deleting everything the next. She jumped whenever her phone buzzed. Her usually polished look had started to fray, looser hair, darker eyes, more sighs than smiles. That night, she came home later than usual. I was already on the couch, sipping bourbon, calm as ever. She dropped her bag on the counter and rubbed her temples. "Do you believe this crap?" she said, half to herself. "Everyone's acting like the company's about to collapse." I glanced over my glass. "You sound nervous." Her head snapped up. "I'm not nervous." I just nodded slowly, not saying a word, letting the silence stretch out between us like a rope. That's when I saw it, her facade starting to slip. She wasn't just afraid for Carl. She was afraid for herself. Because this wasn't just a secret affair anymore. She was in this. Professionally. Legally. She'd tied herself to a sinking ship, and now the water was rising fast. I stood and walked over to her, brushed a piece of hair from her face like nothing had changed between us. She looked up at me, trying to read my expression. "Don't worry," I said softly. "I'm sure everything will work out." She gave me a small, confused nod, but her eyes were screaming. Because deep down, she knew something was coming. And I was just getting started. By this point, the walls were caving in on Carl Peterson. I could see it all over him. Every step he took at the office reeked of tension. Gone was the confident executive who used to breeze through meetings like he owned the world. Now he looked like a man who hadn't slept in days, barely holding it together under the weight of the scrutiny closing in on him. The media was relentless. Articles were dropping every day. Investors were abandoning ship. And the internal investigators had started finding things Carl couldn't explain away with a slick grin or empty charm. But my favorite part, he still didn't know I was behind any of it. And Rachel, she was trying her hardest to keep her mask on, but it was falling apart in slow motion. At home, she'd go through the motions, smile, make small talk, but underneath that was something else entirely. Panic. She'd always been so poised, always knew exactly what to say. No. Her voice was sharp, her patience was gone, and her eyes kept darting to her phone like she was waiting for it to explode. Late one night, while I was pretending to go through reports in my office, I overheard her on the phone. The door was cracked just enough. "You need to fix this, Carl," she hissed, her voice low and angry. "I don't care what the board is saying, make it go away." There was a pause, and then she snapped again. Yes, of course I deleted them. I sat there at my desk, completely still, listening to her pace. My hands gripped the arms of my chair, my jaw locked tight. Deleted what, Rachel? It didn't matter. Whatever it was, I had more than enough. And now it was time to finish what I started. Carl had one weakness. He was desperate. That made him reckless. So I gave him an out, something that looked like salvation but was actually a setup. I made sure that a rumor quietly slipped through the office grapevine, a whisper about an international firm looking to buy out Peterson Capital before things got worse. Nothing official. Just a conversation overheard in the break room. A few suggestive comments here and there. It didn't take much. By lunch, Carl was in his office with his legal team. By dinner, he was meeting with supposed buyers who didn't exist. I'd set up the shell company myself, just enough paperwork to make it look real. I even had a proxy firm in the Caymans feed the rumor. Carl, desperate and cornered, fell for it completely. And then, he made the mistake I was waiting for. He authorized a large transfer, millions, from the company's private accounts into an external one. It was supposed to be for the buyout, but it was a clear violation of finance law. He was trying to move the money before everything collapsed. That transaction. It was the nail in his coffin. The company's internal security flagged it immediately, and by the next morning, the SEC was knocking on his office door. Just like that, the man who thought he was untouchable was officially under federal investigation. He was done. That night, Rachel came home late. Her face was pale, and her hands were shaking as she set her purse on the counter. I was already at the kitchen table with a drink in hand, waiting for her, calm as ever. "You won't believe what happened today," she said, out of breath like she'd just run a mile. I swirled the ice in my glass. "Try me." "Carl's finished. The board kicked him out. There's going to be a full investigation. It's bad, Jake. It's really, really bad." I took a long sip, letting the silence drag out. "Shame," I finally said. That one word broke something in her. She froze, turned to face me slowly, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time in months. "You don't seem surprised," she whispered. I tilted my head slightly. Should I be? And then she knew. It hit her like a freight train. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. "It was you," she whispered. "You did this. You ruined him." I stood up, set my glass down, and looked her dead in the eyes. "No, Rachel. He ruined himself. I just helped move things along." She stumbled backward a step, visibly shaking. "You don't understand. It wasn't just Carl. I was involved. I'm part of this." And I looked her straight in the face and said the one thing I'd been holding in since the beginning. "I know." And in that moment, everything fell apart for her. She stood there, completely still. Her mouth was slightly open, like she wanted to say something, beg, explain, anything, but no words came. For the first time since this whole thing began, Rachel wasn't in control. Not of the conversation. Not of the narrative. Not of me. She was shaking. And I was calm. After a long silence, she finally whispered, "Jake, please." But I wasn't that man anymore. Not the one who stayed up late waiting for her to come home. Not the one who looked away when something didn't feel right. Not the man she thought she could play. I walked past her toward the hallway, my voice low and level. "You made your choices, Rachel. You lived 2 lives and thought I'd never notice. You thought I'd always be the quiet one, the one who trusted, who forgave, who waited. But that man died the second you laughed with him in that car." She blinked rapidly, as if trying to rewind time, to fix something that was already shattered. "I didn't mean, Jake, I didn't mean for it to go this far." "You did," I said without turning around. "You meant every word you whispered to him. Every lie you told me. You just didn't think you'd get caught." The next few days moved fast. Carl was officially removed as CEO. The SEC launched a full-scale investigation into Peterson Capital. Financial records were seized, and more dirt surfaced. Turns out, the fraud went even deeper than Tyler or I initially uncovered. Rachel. She was pulled into the inquiry almost immediately. Emails, calendar logs, flagged transactions, everything tied her to the scandal. And while she tried to play innocent, it didn't matter. The damage was done. The firm's board threw everyone under the bus. Rachel was let go in a quiet, sudden meeting. No ceremony. No goodbyes. Just a pink slip and a security escort out of the building. When she came home that night, she looked like a ghost. Makeup smudged. Eyes hollow. Her voice was barely a whisper. They fired me. I nodded, not even pretending to be surprised. Figured they would. She stared at me, eyes wide, searching for some kind of sympathy. But I didn't offer any. I just stood there, arms crossed, letting her sit in the mess she'd made. And then came the part I'd been preparing for. The divorce. I'd already met with a lawyer weeks earlier. Quietly. Carefully. I had everything documented, every late-night entry into Carl's office, every shift in financial data, every connection between her and the fraud. And the best part? Thanks to the investigation, most of the proof came from their emails. From their mouths. When I handed her the papers, she didn't even fight it. She just looked down, jaw trembling, and nodded. "Are you gonna tell everyone?" she asked softly. I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who once held my heart in her hands, who used to be my home, my best friend, my partner in everything. And now, she was just another person who tried to outsmart the wrong man. "I don't have to tell anyone," I said. "You told the world yourself." I walked out of that house with nothing but a duffel bag and my dignity. I didn't want the furniture. I didn't want the car. Hell, I didn't even want the damn apartment. I just wanted to be free. And I was. A few months later, the story was everywhere. Carl Peterson was indicted. Rachel's name came up in the reports. She wasn't charged criminally, but she was professionally ruined. No firm would touch her after that. Her name was tainted. Her LinkedIn deleted. Reputation gone. Me. I moved on. I got a new job. A better one, actually. One that appreciated people who pay attention to details. Bought myself a small condo in the city, clean and quiet, no echoes of betrayal in the walls. And every now and then, when I see a story about corporate fraud or watch some scandal unravel on TV, I remember her face that night. Pale. Broken. Defeated. She thought she could lie forever. She thought I'd never see it. But the thing about people like me, we always see it. We just wait for the right moment to act. And when we do, we don't miss. Thank you for visited my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.